All right, guys. So we went ahead and we looked at the first half of our second body paragraph, and it basically just walked you through what you needed to do. But now here's a completed version of the second half. Okay. So we know in the first half, we have to talk about one type of irony that's used in one story, one that we haven't talked about in our first body paragraph. And now in our second half of our second body, we are going to go ahead and talk about the second story and the second type of irony that we have not already talked about before. So essentially, you're talking about all types of irony, every single one. So situational, verbal, and dramatic throughout your paper. Because the second body is looking at a second type of irony and a second work, you want to use a transition word that's going to show that you're going to be on the opposite side or contrast from something. So if you click on the hyperlink that is provided here with the transition word, it will take you to this document and you can go ahead and zoom in and see contradiction. Pick one from this area. Okay. So I said, in contrast to the lottery, the first text that we worked with, the author of Story of an Hour uses dramatic irony. Okay. So then I looked for my quote and I found my quote that shows us dramatic irony. She had died of a heart disease, the joy that kills. Now, since you have not read Story of an Hour, or most of you have not, you may not know what part that's from. So you need to tell me the plot clue. You need to tell me everything that's happening before this quote happens. So it says, as Mr. Mallard comes home, Mrs. Mallard is flabbergasted or shocked by the sight of her assumed dead husband. After imagining all the various ways she could now live her life and the hopes she had, they are all suddenly crushed. In turn, she perished and the doctors are called. So she died because she's so shocked. The narrator explains to the reader. So we just had our plot clue all the way up until this part. Okay, it tells us exactly what's happening before this quote is spoken. Then we have our speaker. Our speaker is the narrator. What does he do? He explains to who? The reader. And then we insert our quote. Okay, remember, your quotes cannot start a sentence, so you need to make sure that you have the word like that, which knows that you're going to have a flow quote, or you have a comma as long as it makes sense. Okay, and it's going to be a dialogue quote then. Then we get on to our explanation. We want to make sure that we're going to explain the author's purpose in using this type of irony and then how it develops a theme. Okay, so let's take a look at our explanation. The author chooses to use this dramatic irony, so we're mentioning again what type of irony we're using, to deepen the story's meaning and develop the theme. There's our author's purpose right there. Why are they using it? To deepen the story's meaning. Okay, now we're going to explain our quote. As the doctors claim that Mrs. Mallard has died of a heart disease, one can infer and use context clues to determine that she has died of a broken heart disease, which is brought on by realizing that she will not be able to fulfill her wishes of exploration and individualism. While the readers truly know that she has died from this broken heart, her husband, Brentley Mallard, and the doctors believe she died of sudden shock and being overwhelmed with joy of her husband's death. Okay, of her husband's life. Okay, because we know that he's really alive. When we mention joy, it ties back into our quote, the joy that kills. Okay, so you're explaining how that quote really develops the author's purpose. Then we go ahead and say the author uses this again to deepen the story's meaning, going back to the purpose, so that the readers can better understand Mrs. Mallard's wish to explore her freedom. This also helps to develop the theme because the reader can see that not everything is as it seems, and some things are too good to be true. Mrs. Mallard had high hopes when she believed that she was free, yet this was in fact too good to be true because her hopes were shattered when her husband came through the door and shocked her to death. Okay, so we have two parts that we have to answer. We have to understand the author's purpose and why they use that as irony, and then we have to go ahead and we have to say how it develops the theme. Okay, so these two different ways. Make sure that you have done both for your essay. Okay, again, this is for the second half of the second body paragraph. We're looking at the different purpose of, or we're looking at the different type of irony in the different story. Okay.